Yeah, and I would kick off our today's session, welcoming everyone to the Beyond Consulting podcast. It's my real pleasure, Lisa, to have you here today. Lisa, you are the CEO of an edtech company.
I
So it's a
am.
bit of a different topic maybe that we cover today. We're going to touch on topics like what do you need to learn in the future and what consultants might want to learn and need to learn in the future. What are future skills? But before we get there, Lisa, maybe you can give us a brief intro about yourself and how you came to into the ad space.
Absolutely. Pleasure to join you and to have this conversation. I'm really excited about it. So I'm Lisa Haycox. I'm CEO of an organisation called Explore Learning. We are the largest UK independent provider of tuition for children aged between 4 and 16. And we have around 95 centres across the UK, and we also have a very large sort of growing online side of the business. What's always been core to me, because I've been in the organisation my entire career, and what's really important to me is that we are developing not only academic skills in those children, but also skills that they need to learn and thrive beyond the next education milestone. So that has been really core to my sort of purpose throughout the organisation and very key to my journey to becoming CEO as well.
And I mean, you said you've stayed your entire career. How did you become the CEO? How did that happen? How did you go through all the ladders? How?
I'll do the shortcut version. You don't want the full 20 years, but I started as a tutor, came out of university, clear that I wanted to be somewhere that was really making a difference, probably discounted teaching, and ended up joining as a tutor, and then went through different management layers of the organisation, ran my own centre, grew my own centre, and then really I went into a dual role very early in the business, which was learning and development and operations. And I learned there the power of people development and really unlocking potential in people and how that links to their performance. And then I continued my journey as chief operations officer. And then early this year, I took the step up to lead the organization, taking over from the founder. So yeah, it's very exciting time still. And why am I still here? Because I'm always learning stuff new. And that's what drives me. The business is evolving and I'm evolving too.
And that sounds very fascinating. One thing just struck me when you said like, how do you unlock potential? First of all, probably how do you identify it, but how do you unlock it? That is fascinating to me.
Yeah. And ultimately, I can't. You've got to get the person themselves to see it and then to unlock it. But what I have always championed is looking for it in people. I think you've got to be open to spotting it in people first. And I will always sort of say, okay, well, what's that beginning of a skill they need that you can see that you can really build in people? And then it's asking the really great questions that get people to see that they've got that and where they could start to tap into. I think it's about observing, listening, and questions. Always they're great questions.
Are there certain buckets of talents that you can unlock, or how do you would describe that?
Gosh, there is, but there's lots of people, if I think about people in our organization that have grown, I've got a guy who now leads sort of FP&A and strategy function, who started in one of our centres with no financial background. But I looked at him and I was like, he's super smart. He can spot patterns. He's putting together information really quickly. I think there's something here there. And so you start to look at those talents and you start to look at people's skills. You start to look at their analytical skills. You start to look at more of maybe how they start to build up strategy. And I never like to put people in lanes or into buckets because I think you can always develop further, but you start to get them to see what they could be, which is really exciting.
So it's about developing the talent, yeah. And of course, there is a certain market dynamic that as a company you are in. You've stayed a long time now in the education technology sector. What trends are currently shaping the education industry from your perspective?
Gosh. Well, look, I'm sure there's not any industry at the moment that isn't talking about the role of AI and tech, and that's huge in education. It's a really massive question. We have a strong position on that, that the future is a blend of human and AI. Now, how that blend shifts over time, I think we've got to continue to look at what learners' needs really are, and the potential of tech. Um, I think we're also seeing in education how learners' needs are shifting. So, children's needs, whether they're emotional needs, special educational needs. Um, I'm really passionate about the skills we're giving children that mean that they can go on and be successful outside of school. We've got too many children who are leaving school in the UK who aren't going into further education or into employment. And that's a real problem because we're not equipping them to strive beyond the academic setting. That's a real problem.
So you think we'll see more AI, or let's say also I would say screen-based learning in the future with kids? Because what I'm asking myself, I've recently read a study where it was argued that basically kids are having a lot of screen time these days already, and the more they look at these devices, the less they can actually focus on certain topics. They get distracted, their attention spans get really, really short. How would you see this developing in the future?
I don't know if it's about screen time because I think it's really about how we enable our children to use tech to be curious, fantastic. But how do we use it to really support their thinking and their learning, which I don't think we're in that place at the moment. And that's where you need the humans to be able to say, okay, but tell me what you're getting from the screen time and the tech, and how are you applying it? Like, how are you using those skills? Now, if we're not supporting our children still to have the collaboration skills and the people skills and the empathy skills, I think we're heading towards a real problem where what you described in terms of screen time, distraction, thinking you're going to get everything from technology, I think is a real challenge for us with the with the children that we're currently thinking about in this generation.
And do you have an example for that? Where you say, okay, what do I get out of the tech? How do you apply that in the real world? How can you make it that kind of thing happen with technology to help kids develop new skills?
Yeah, so we've developed our own proprietary learning platform, Compass. Um, what we have really thought very carefully about is, well, what need does that play in terms of adapting to children? And so it's giving them the right question at the right time for their needs. But we link that with our trusted educators and tutors to mean that if they're finding information, that their tutor is building upon that and building that curiosity. Now, if you go to how children are now using large language models, I think, again, great that they've got that curiosity to want to get the information for it. But where are we linking that up with the human that says, but is that right? Have you evaluated the information that you're getting, and not just, all the questions around education at the moment that kids are just copying and pasting what ChatGPT has just given them.
So they can't take it, of course, for granted. Yeah. What should we teach our kids then? I mean, they could question all the LLMs, get all the answers. What are
they,
the core skills in that sense of the
yeah,
of
and
the of
it's
the teacher
tough,
that we
right?
can take? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
These are big questions. I think it is still teaching our children those critical thinking, problem solving skills. I think it is teaching our children the adaptability and the resilience, because nothing is a given. That knowledge that you've learned, I don't know, a year ago is out of date. You have to be adapting the
Mhm.
whole time. And then I do think that ability to work with others and collaborate and really work with people, um, I still think is going to be a critical skill that we need to be teaching our children. And not how you gain knowledge, and being a phenomenal learner is going to be something that's really important. But I think you've got to put those skills around it, for children to thrive in the future.
And I mean, again, how would you educate or learn that critical thinking? Because it's so easy. If I think about my children, they ask the LLM some question about the weather or some animals or some whatever they're interested in, and the answer is right there. So how is there any practical advice you'd give to
Practical advice? It's all our extension questions that our tutors are just absolute superstars at. So it's all those questioning techniques where you're like, so could there be another way of looking at this? Or is there any versions where that might not be true? Or when could you put this into a different scenario? And I think even asking the question sometimes is you see a child go, oh, hang on a second. And even if you've asked that question and they've got the right answer, they're right, but just giving them one or two more thought processes to think, am I sure? How might I look at that? That's how you start to build those skills, even when they're very little, and then obviously you build on those to when they're, approaching those later stages.
Now, you mentioned one thing, that is adaptability. So you need to constantly learn. That means also maybe you need to unlearn certain things that were practical a year ago, and now maybe there is a different tool or a different approach to solve certain things. Is that possible at all, to unlearn things? Should we learn to unlearn things, or what would be the approach for that?
I think so, but I think it's really hard, right? And I think about us in our different industries and things that have worked that you hold on to that may not work in a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time. I think it's been a real skill that I've had to hone over my time at Explore, because if you've done 20 years in one business and been successful, each year challenging that and saying, well, what does the consumer of today really need, and how do we have to unlearn stuff? How do you unlearn things? I think you've got to put yourselves in different scenarios and have different people challenge you and challenge your thinking. So to have a diverse team of people who are asking you different questions, I think is really important. I think get out of your industry. So spend time in other categories and other industries, which I try to do. If you spend too much time in EdTech, then you're going to, only look at it from an EdTech perspective. But early in my career, I spent quite a lot of time looking at hospitality and looking at some other industries, and that helped unlearn some things. So I think it's about perspective. I think you've got to, look at it from different angles.
What were some things that you unlearned?
Oh gosh, what are some things that I've unlearned?
Or where you learned something from another industry, let's say.
So hospitality, when I actually went and spent some time early in my career, someone was very kind and let me spend some time with a massive pub chain in the UK. And you wouldn't think pubs and EdTech go hand in hand. But really, in a smaller business, quality, everything we'd done there, and what I learned or what I could build on while looking at hospitality was how you don't compromise on quality and you can build scale. And I think when we look at what we've done across the UK, a constant obsession of mine is how you deliver phenomenal quality at scale. So we're supporting 28,000 members. How do each of those children have the same quality of learning? And sometimes you have to unlearn some stuff that you were doing when you were supporting 5,000 kids that you can't do at that type of stuff.
And when you say quality is the ultimate ratio, and that's what you want to achieve. And of course, you have individual learners. You have children with different needs. Now you even have AI that can support a very customized learning journey. Do you think we're going to move towards a market of one, where basically everyone gets their personally tailored education?
I don't know. Look, it's really tough because do I believe that every child is the only way you would be able to do that? I think is through all tech, and I currently think it is a human and tech future. And I believe that we have so many different learners with really unique needs, and that's what we continue to see. That every child that is coming to us has a very much, by deeply listening to that parent, a very unique need. So I'm not convinced, but you continue to see the the work we're doing with tech, the work that we're doing with AI, and we're really making progress there. So I'm not convinced yet, though.
Now, you mentioned when we first spoke that you yourself went through a bit of a transformation with Explore Learning, with the company you're working at. Can you tell us a little bit about that transformation and how you came to where you are now?
Absolutely. So we are a business that predominantly had grown through opening physical locations across the UK. And the transformation that we went through was really about building upon everything we'd learned from our phenomenal centre-based business and unlocking the potential of tech, and particularly sort of ed tech, by building our own proprietary technology to take the service to the next level. But we weren't starting from a point of being a tech business, right? I hadn't grown up in a tech organization, and now I lead an ed tech business. So all the learning that you had to do to leave some of the old ways behind and actually bring in talent into the organization, that means that we could be building our own ed tech, our own proprietary learning system, parent engagement systems, everything that went around that, meant for me that one of the most important thing was getting the right talent into the organization to help that shift, but also the people who remained in the organization. There's lots of people like me who've been in the organization a really long time, shifting the skills that we needed in order for us to thrive. And now we have a growing online side of the business as well, where we support people, children, virtually online with tuition. And I think that transformation has been huge for the business, but it's been a real journey in terms of, again, learning. We're a learning organization, and we have to be committed to learning, and in terms of how we show up. So that's been a big transformation for me.
I mean, we at Expert Powers, we typically provide consultants to businesses to exactly support transformation programs, and often in those type of transformations, as you describe it, you went from an office-based, like a site-based business to more like an online tech business. A lot of companies draw on the help of advisors to guide them. How should we do the strategy? How did we do the change management with the organization? How did you do it? Did you do it completely yourself? Did you pull in some advisors? How did you manage to pull in all this talent and then also take the organization on board?
So we had initially a external consultant, well, more of a tech consultancy, helped us build out the tech platform initially. But very quickly, when we brought in our chief digital officer, he made the decision to in-house that. And actually do all the tech development in-house. And that's been really critical for us, because I think you get much quicker pace of change, because our in-house team are phenomenal at seeing the needs of our customers. They're out there, they're testing our stuff with and getting the best feedback from our honest feedback from our children and our parents. And then that's going into the development pipeline. So we had some of that. I think we were also, to be honest, the pace of change was driven in some way by the pandemic. So we made that decision, and then the pandemic really accelerated that. So probably a roadmap that I had that would transition the business over 2 to 3 years happens in 3 weeks on the run up to COVID, and that's what we had to do. And then we had to iterate from there. So some of it was circumstantial too. And then along the way, again, we've used experts in the field to go out to, and then thought about what talent we need to bring into the organization.
And if you think about that process again, and also maybe thinking about other companies that are starting that transformation now, that where maybe some leaders are listening right now.
What's my advice to them?
What's your advice? Yeah, would you always say, look, internalize it? That was basically what was our game changer to faster pace, where maybe would have some external voice have helped you to accelerate things, or maybe to skip a couple of stones that otherwise you could have easily roadblocks that you could easily probably have mitigated otherwise. What would be your advice?
Absolutely. My advice would be to look at your team and be really honest about the skills that you've currently got and what you can build and how fast you want to move based on the investment that you've got or the capability that you've got. And then figure out where you've got gaps and find experts, but be really clear with your advisor what's the gap to fill. And we've been really lucky about how much we get them integrated into the organization and really understanding the organization. That's the key, right? That you are actually working as a team rather than having an outside-in approach. So the more information that you can give them and how close you can get to the organization, then I think you're likely to get that gap filled. And sometimes you just got to make the bold leap. I think quite a lot of time you push an exec team and there's lots of reasons why you should go slower. But for us, we made that bold leap and look where we got to. I don't think we would have done it anywhere near as well if we hadn't had some of the circumstances that forced us into some of those situations.
Now, I mean, a lot of executives I speak with, they say, okay, you get the ball rolling, everything is moving at fast pace. But eventually that moment comes where people realize, we have also our normal day-to-day business to run. And now you have this extra workload. How did you manage this?
Okay. Well, yes, felt that too. That's definitely a normal thing. I think it's about the squads of people that you put on it, because some people really thrive in that world of fast-paced, little bit more uncertainty, and you'll say go again and they're like, yeah, give it to me. And there are some people who get exhausted by it and say, not for me, thanks very much. And I think it's being really transparent about where you are as an organization. So if you are in fast-paced change transformation mode, then have that honest conversation as an organization. And it's okay if people say that that's not me, but I think you have to say, well, this might not be quite the right place for you right now, because that's the business and that's the place that we're in. Or if you can organize yourself to split that out a bit more. But we definitely, probably in the virtual side of the business, who had people who are really up for like, let me at it. Pioneers, we call them. They're the pioneers of that side of the business.
I like that view. And you say, okay, well, be transparent, but let people choose if they want to be part of the journey, if they feel good about it.
Yeah.
And want to shape the organization to the needs that currently there are.
Yeah.
Now we spoke a bit about kids. We spoke a bit about the future skills they need. We have an organization with around 100,000 freelance consultants and experts. Are there any of those future skills where you would say, look, this is also relevant. This is what consultants and experts would need to learn in the future to stay competitive? And it's a broad question, of course.
It's a broad question. I think some of the best experts and consultants I've worked with are extraordinary people. They're really smart people and they're really good at the problem to solve. But the skill in how you collaborate and understand people and the depth that you can go to with people, I think is ultimately how you're going to get, as a consultant, what you need out of the team. You're going to be able to use AI to do some of the thinking, but in terms of really what's going to move it with that team and get them to commit to the change, I do think the collaboration skills and the skills of working from people are going to continue to be very, very important.
And when you put yourself in the shoes of a freelancer, they do projects for multiple clients. Obviously, they need to acquire maybe also projects at the same time because they know maybe my contract's ending next month. So I need to get them some new business. So how much time should people spend on learning new skills on average? Is that, if you look at the kids, probably there's an average. Maybe for consultants also there is or professionals in the work field, there is an average of learning time that they should have per week, per month, per year or so.
I'm probably going to be a bit controversial, because I think if we try and time box it, you've got to be open to learning from pretty much anywhere all of the time, right? So for if there's a certain skill that I'm thinking I need to acquire, or there's a bit of knowledge, I'm probably setting aside 1 to 2 hours a week, normally on my Friday afternoon, which is my time held on, this is something I really need to learn up on. But I think the people who I meet who are excelling are the ones that are using every opportunity they can to take those nuggets of learning, or they're pushing it a little bit further, think, oh, could I meet with that person? Because that could give me a little bit more that I could take away from it. So, an hour or so a week, great, but let's be using all the opportunities we can to learn stuff from others or from other organizations.
And how would you best prepare such a learning mindset?
Oh gosh, okay. Always ask the questions, always reflect at the end of something, what's my takeaways? I'll normally always ask people who I'm meeting with or who I work with, like, what did you take away from that? Anything that's shifted for you following what we just did? Not holding on to things too tightly. I think sometimes people who like, this is the way it is, and hold on to things a little bit more lightly gives you a bit more malleability in where you want to be with that learning mindset. And if you can, try and track. That's how I would have done it before, and I've just done that thing, and have I improved with it? Have I done that thing a little bit better? I think it's good to see progress. That's what we do with our children a lot, is you commit to learning if you see progress. I think you're more likely as an adult to think, oh, great, I've done that thing a bit better because I learned that thing. That there's an outcome from it.
Creating a sense of progress, and then with that having a positive feedback loop.
Absolutely, yeah. That's it. Then you're more likely to continue to do it.
Super. Lisa, I have a last mini section. Yeah,
okay.
It's more like a rapid fire.
Yes.
Q&A. Yeah. But I think don't think too much about it. Yeah?
Okay, I've just got to hit you with it. Fine, hit you with my answer.
But of course, what is a great teacher? What's your favorite teacher?
So, gosh, my favorite teacher was actually a teacher from my old comprehensive school, Mr. Wilson. He was my biology teacher, and all great traits of a teacher. He spotted that I could do some stuff really well. He gave me praise. He asked me questions. So it would be my old biology teacher from my old comprehensive school.
Super. Is there any book everyone should read about? Future skills.
Future skills. Well, a book I took a lot away from was The Mum Test by Rob Fitzpatrick, which is all about how you really listen to your customers and experiment stuff without bias. So The Mum Test was a book I took a lot away from when thinking about learning from customers and not hearing what you want to hear.
And which podcast, of course, except the Beyond Consulting podcast, could you not stop listening to?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm gonna really struggle with that, because I don't think I'm a dedicated. I pick and choose lots of different podcasts. I'm not a regular podcast. I flit around, I'm afraid. I find that one quite hard.
And is there any learning platform that you would recommend for consultants or professionals?
Oh gosh,
I use myself the Duolingo app, for example, quite often to learn a new language. But maybe there are a lot more cool things out there.
No, to be honest, I was about to say Duolingo is one of the best in the business, right, in terms of what they've done in that space. So if there's people we're looking at in terms of learning platform, and that's really interesting what they're doing, but in a completely different space in language, then I would probably struggle in your consultant world, where I would be pointing you towards. But I'm sure to share with you in the future if I think of something.
Yes, let's do that. And we, of course, can provide that also in the comments later on.
Absolutely.
Lisa, thank you very much for joining today. It's been my absolute pleasure having you on the show. And wishing you a great summer, and, of course, a great journey on with Explore Learning.
Christian, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.